How to shoot from the hip to supersize and grow your business. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here. This is the only guy I could find that looked like he had his hands by his hips, and he actually has what? Wings and feathers, and so it's just a character from probably from a Happy Meal or some kind of a kid's meal from some restaurant. I don't know. But having a granddaughter, now I have weird toys around the house sometimes that I didn't have for a whole lot of years. But shooting from the hip is our idiom today. To shoot from the hip, of course, means to speak or act without thinking of the consequences, without, really thinking it through and just reacting. To me, it's just instantly reacting. Something happens, you react without really thinking about it. That's shooting from the hip. Now, this idiom, it was interesting. Did a little research online and found different possible origins on different sites and different sources on the internet. Can you imagine that? Different versions and different facts on the internet about anything. Well, something as non-controversial as an idiom, shoot from the hip, has various meanings associated with it. Think of what other topics and bigger topics have in terms of diverse information. Whether it's true or not, we don't know until we do our own research, till we look into it, which is one of the things we'll talk about in a minute. So shooting from the hip supposedly comes from the Western times, one version, from the cowboy days, right? When they'd have gunfights and Western gunfights, and they'd, go back to back and count off, how many ever paces, and then they'd turn around and draw and shoot at each other. Now, if you pulled your gun out and aimed and shot, you probably had a good chance of killing your opponent, except you'd already be dead because they would have shot from their hip, meaning in one source they said that you didn't pull your gun out of your holster, you just pulled it up and shot, which sounds ridiculous to me, but some silly people probably tried that, some cowboys. But the other is that you pull and you draw right at your hip and you shoot immediately upon getting it out of the holster, and although it's less accurate, you can shoot a lot faster. You can react and respond faster, even though it's less accurate. And then another source even says that, hey, think about it. It came from way earlier than the cowboy days. It came from the times when firearms were first invented, and they weren't very accurate, right? And not only were they not very accurate, they weren't very safe. They were pretty dangerous. So if you were aiming and sighting by your face, you could get your face blown off. And so since people didn't want to do that, they tended to shoot and put their firearm in a place that was a little less accurate, but chances are a lot less painful for them because they weren't going to get their face or something blown off if the musket or whatever misfired. And there was also the challenge of huge recoil with early firearms. The recoil now on some handguns and things is almost nothing. Even I can shoot them. But back then, I'm sure I would have been blown backwards on my rear end if I would have to try to shoot some of the firearms from that day and age. So they would actually, instead of bracing on your shoulder like you normally would with a shotgun or a rifle, they would actually brace it on their hip because they had a less recoil and less chance of pain and injury shooting their weapon back then that way. So that makes sense to me, right? And it doesn't even matter if it makes sense to me. How do we use an idiom like this, shoot from the hip, in our favor to make our business grow and better? Number one, there are situations where a quick response and a quick action is required, right? In those situations, we want to have a process that we naturally go through really, really quickly to make sure that what we're saying and doing is in alignment with what our organization stands for, with what we're all about, so that we don't find ourselves and other people thinking that we're just shooting from our hip and we're not being consistent with the message and why we exist as a business in the first place. And you can do that by having a process for handling challenges and comments and situations and triggers automatically installed in yourself. We talk about that in the Get Up and Go challenge. I do a 30-day free challenge. This will be the 5th one starting in December, where we talk about a framework to install that into you so that whenever anything happens, you are always going to give the best response, a better response than you would if you didn't have something planned out ahead of time. So we want to think and breathe before we act. It might be as simple as taking a few deep breaths and then letting your head and your heart and your intuition take a moment before you respond or react. It can be as simple as that. We also want to remember to do our homework and do our research, do our own homework and our own research. When I find conflicting information for something as simple as an idiom on the internet, think of all the conflicting messages that we're all getting all the time from all the different sources of information that we listen to. We listen to our friends, we listen to our relatives, we listen to business associates, we listen to coaches and gurus, we listen to media, we listen to different types of entertainment and performance, we listen to the radio, we listen to podcasts, we watch and we read blogs and magazines and publications and newsletters, and we watch, some people watch the mainstream media. We might get 10 different versions of the same exact event, or 10 different causes of the, or reviews of the same speech or information. I say, go to the source, watch it, listen to it for yourself, and make your own decisions and conclusions based on that information. So think for yourself. Don't believe everything you hear or read or see at first blush. So much misinformation. There's as much misinformation in the world as there is good, solid, real data and information. And whenever you're looking at summaries and statistics of someone's interpretation of raw data or information, be very wary, because just like it's easy to lie with statistics, it's easy to lie with scientific data and research, because you can look at the data and finesse the data to say or look any way you want. And so you want to always consider the source. What is the reason why the source is presenting the information this way? Why are they doing that? What's in it for them to do that? And if their intent is genuine and authentic and sincere and for the best interest of the listener or the viewer, awesome. If it's not, you want to know that, and you want to make sure that you're thinking for yourself and weighing the decisions and the choices that you make before you react. So shoot from the hip. You're going to have to sometimes, but I say have a process in place so that you're not really shooting from the hip ever. You're consistent with your values. You're consistent with your message. You're consistent with the direction your organization is going. And when you know that, it makes it easy to make decisions. It makes it easy to respond. It makes it easy to know what to do next, because you're in alignment with yourself and your organization. So that's our idiom for today. Love to know your experience with it. Me, lots of experience with this one. I was a corporate ask for forgiveness, not permission kind of gal, which is in some people's minds shooting from the hip. But to be honest, it was never shooting from the hip for me. It was, I don't want to go through all those, or we don't have time in order to get a good result to go through all of the hoops that you need to jump through. Depending on the size of an organization, you might have to jump through a whole lot of hoops. It might take a year and a half to get a decision and get permission for something that we could have already tested and put in place and been rolling out organization wide in a couple of weeks. But otherwise we wouldn't have been able to start it for like a year and a half. And for my career personally, that worked really well for me. It got me where I wanted to go faster than anything else I could have done. Don't recommend it for the faint of heart, because it can be stressful, but it worked for me. So that's it. Have an awesome day, and I'll be with you tomorrow with another interesting idiom. What does it mean? Where does it come from? And how might you use it to grow and build your business right now?